Hello and a very warm welcome to this week's Met Office Deep Dive. If you've not seen one of these before, this is where we take 20 minutes, maybe half an hour to look at the detail of one or two meteorological subjects. Now, this week there really is only one story in town, Storm Éowyn, which is arriving on Friday. So we'll be looking closely at where this storm has come from, why it is forming, what is giving it its intensity. If you enjoy this, then please do hit the thumbs up button and why not subscribe to our YouTube channel. Spread the love as well. Let people know that we're on here. We love making this kind of content and we know from the comments that you guys enjoy watching it. Speaking of comments, please do fill those in as well. Again, we love reading through them. Any suggestions, any ideas for future things that we could do in the Met Office Deep Dive or in our Weather Studio Live that we'll be doing this Friday as the storm hits. Okay. Lots and lots to get through, so let's get right stuck into it straight away with the view from space. What's been going on over the past few days? You can see low pressure systems have mostly been drifting towards the north of the UK, taken away up there by the jet stream, and also things have been pretty active in and around the Mediterranean. Swirl of low pressure across Italy, bringing some heavy rain here a few days ago, and now there's a little weather system just off the coast of Iberia. Now that's a named storm down here, bringing still some wet weather over the next couple of days and the potential for further flooding across parts of Spain and Portugal. You can see that circulation there and the weather fronts still affecting Iberia for the next day or so, with further heavy showers to come here. I'd say the potential for some flooding. But for us, the weather's been relatively quiet because we're between those two kind of storm tracks, if you like. We've seen some stubborn mist and fog, and that will again be a bit of an issue tonight also. But the weather, though, remaining pretty calm for the next few days. It's Thursday and more particularly into Friday when we're concerned about this storm arriving. Storm Éowyn, which was named this morning. We named it because we're concerned about the strength of the wind on Friday. Damaging gusts of wind are likely. The exact location, the exact detail, well, we're more confident on that today than we were yesterday. And again, we'll look at some of the reasons behind that. But where is this storm system coming from? Well, for that, if you're a regular viewer to the deep dive, you'll know that we have to look high in the sky where the aeroplanes fly, and that's where the jet stream lives. A couple of areas of low pressure near the UK at the moment, but not many isobars on the charts. The jet is split, which is why the lows have been drifting up towards Iceland or down here, down across the Mediterranean. But look out here, a beast is brewing, a really intense jet stream. We can put the winds on in the middle of that jet stream, close to 200 miles an hour in that jet core, which is streaming out of North America. And that is why we're seeing big changes to our weather through the course of this week. Why are we seeing that change? Well, it's all to do with a huge drop in temperatures across the United States. Let's take the jet off for now. You can see this really cold air. Arctic air is blasting its way down across the United States. How cold is it? Well, let's take a look at some of the temperatures at time of recording. Negative double digits in New York. It'll get a little milder through the day as we see the sun rising a little higher. But generally speaking, this cold air persists across the Great Lakes. Negative teens there in Chicago. And although it gets a little milder in Chicago, the cold air does kind of persist across these eastern areas for the next few days. And it's that cold air drifting south that is what is driving the jet stream. That is what is intensifying the jet stream. Why does that happen? Well, it's about the contrast. It's about the gradient that in the temperatures that drives the jet stream. So because all this tropical air is here, that's not really shifting. What we're doing is drawing down the colder air from the north, and that will keep going. And it's on this boundary where the cold meets the warm, you get a big drop, a big gradient between the cold and the warm. And that is where the jet stream is at its most active. And look at that, fast forwarded just to the middle of the night tonight, and we've already got those winds in that same location now over 200 miles an hour. I might even be able to find a higher one. Look at that, 220 miles an hour. Now those are the winds high up, 30,000 feet, 9 kilometers up. That's the winds in the middle of the jet stream. But that is that powerful jet. We may even see it touching 240, perhaps even 250 miles an hour. It does mean that if you're on a transatlantic flight, well, you'll get home pretty sharply over the next couple of days. If you know anyone heading back from the United States, that jet stream is powering across the Atlantic, and yeah, look at that. It's really extending now. Again, let's see if we can find any stronger winds in the middle of that. 224 mile an hour in the middle of there. So yes, a very powerful jet stream, and that's important because that is what intensifies the low pressure system that will become Storm Éowyn. Not really much at the moment. It's here, fairly feeble looking feature down here, 1,003 hectopascals, 1,003 millibars in the middle of that. But as we go through the next 48 hours or so, it really starts to intensify. By the time we get to Thursday lunchtime, it's quite an active area of low pressure. Let's just take it back a little bit and look at the central pressure as it starts to form now. Thursday, 7 o'clock in the morning, put the pressure on that, 986 hectopascals. But fast forward another 24 hours, Friday at 7 o'clock, that's when it's close to or just over Northern Ireland, and that is now 953 hectopascals. So what has that dropped? From 986 to 953, 30 odd hectopascals, 30 millibars in 24 hours, which makes it explosive cyclogenesis. And some, if you play around with the numbers, we might even get a bigger drop in that central pressure. If it's anything over 24 hectopascals in 24 hours, we can say it's explosive cyclogenesis. That is what that term means, if a low pressure loses 24 hectopascals from its central pressure in 24 hours. But some of the solutions, some of the computer models are suggesting that the drop may, if we get the timings right, maybe close to 50 hectopascals. So a really intense drop in the pressure pattern from this storm system as it approaches, and that's why we're concerned. Just look at the isobars that have popped out of it. Let's take those numbers off for now and just look at the pressure pattern as it intensifies between Thursday morning, where it's just out here, just gradually the isobars just jumping out of it as it intensifies. So yes, that low pressure system becoming Storm Éowyn as it approaches the UK. The isobars tightly packed, going to really barrel into the Republic of Ireland first Thursday night, Friday morning, before it then crosses into the UK and gives us problems during the course of Friday. Now, really, let's dig a little deeper into why that is intensifying so much, because just because it's a strong jet stream doesn't necessarily mean that low pressure is going to intensify. Let's rewind the clock and take you back to, let's zoom out a little bit as well. Put the jet stream on. Now, if we look at it here, the position of that low, it's just in here. The jet actually isn't as strong now. These numbers not up to 200 miles an hour, but still, it's still a pretty powerful jet, 170 miles an hour. But it's starting to shift and it's starting to change. At the moment, in this position, was that Thursday, 3 o'clock in the morning, before it really starts its intensification. It's on the cold side of the jet. It's not doing much. The jet is reasonably consistent. It's quite long, it's one kind of length, one kind of long jet streak, if you like. Now, if the jet actually stays the same all the way, then there's nothing to really intensify that low pressure. What actually happens, if we zoom in a little bit, is the jet kind of splits up a little bit. Let's take those numbers off because we don't need them now. I'm going to take the pressure off first. Take the numbers off. Watch what happens to the jet stream as we go through Thursday morning and into Thursday afternoon. Now it's kind of split. It's split into two different areas. The actual center of the jet, not as strong, 165 miles an hour up here, it's 160 as well. So it's not as intense. It's not about the intensity of the jet. Again, it's about the gradient, because in here, the jet's actually pretty weak. And what we call this, instead of having that long jet stream, now we've got a smaller jet streak. And that's important because it's that helps to intensify the low pressure systems. If I can maybe show you on a diagram, let's let's do some drawing. Use my GCSE art in a little section here. So imagine this is the jet, but that kind of smaller jet streak, if you like. So in here we've got strong winds, here the winds are lighter. So coming in here we've got an acceleration. The winds are picking up here, but coming out of here the winds are decelerating. And what you end up with, what we call this is the jet exit here and the jet entrance here, and you have a right and a left. And in this section here, the left exit of the jet, and in this section here, the right entrance of the jet, the winds high in the sky are diverging. And there, that means because the winds high in the sky are diverging, it sucks up air from the ground. And these areas, these little pockets, the left exit and the right entrance, are areas where low pressure systems can really breed, really intensify. Because of that divergence, basically sucking the air up through. So it creates a pocket, low down, a low pressure system. And in here, actually the air is converging. Now, I did a special jet stream deep dive in the summer of 2023. I'll put a link to it in the chat, explaining more detail about the dynamics of a jet and why that happens. But basically, going back to the jet here, what we have on Thursday morning is that jet splitting, and that develops that low pressure system as it splits. And it's that little split which is more important than purely the strength of the jets. This left exit area that then you put the pressure pattern on, it's in here. Look, that's exactly where it is, in that left exit area. That is why overnight Thursday that low intensifies further, because it's in that left exit region of the jet. So it's not just about the pure power of the jet, it's actually that little split which is really crucial to spinning up Storm Éowyn as it approaches the UK. So yes, storm system approaching, the jet is responsible, and in particular intensification as it approaches the country. So yeah, we are going to see some strong winds. What kind of wind speeds are we going to see? Well, first of all, that does depend on the exact track of the low. So what I was showing you there was with the Met Office computer model, the deterministic, when we run it, that main run of the Met Office computer model. But obviously that's not always that useful, because this time yesterday it was in a slightly different position to what it is today, and it always is going to shift a little bit. There's obviously a lot of variables, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of energy involved in the atmosphere. So it's also 3 days away. The storm hasn't formed yet. So, you know, there's going to be a shift here and there in each individual model run. So what we try and do is look at the models, run them a number of times, what we call an ensemble forecast, and run those computer models a number of times. Now, I'm going to show you the European model run. This is a Dalmatian plot showing when we run the model many times, each different colour represents, different spot represents a position of the low. Now I'm sorry it's not super clear, but hopefully you can just see in there, that's the UK outline there. In fact, can I draw that on? Oh, let's try and draw it on. Oh, that's not, why is that not in blue? Oh, it's the wrong colour. Anyway. Oh, it's because I'm in that. There we go. So that's the south coast, that's northern Scotland, that's the east coast, and that's the Republic of Ireland there. So the low is in here, heading into western Scotland from the deterministic run of the European model in there. That's what all these different coloured isobars are. But each of these different dots represents a different centre of the low when you run it many times. Now, what you can see here actually is the main deterministic run is a little further ahead than most of the ensemble members. So there's a bit of uncertainty about the position. The different colours represent the different intensities of the low. The pinks and the yellows, really deep areas of low pressure. They're all a little further north and west. So this is the most recent run of the European model run, and it's actually showing quite good clustering, although they are a little bit further west than the main run. If I show you what we were looking at yesterday, and this is the run from today. This is the run from yesterday, and you can see there's a bigger spread. The low pressure systems are more evenly spread around the main run, but they are more distributed. There's a wider distribution. What's actually come together is they are getting more bunched, and that gives us more confidence in the forecast. Another thing we can look at is the Met Office model compared to the European model. And this was yesterday. Sorry, this is a bit tricky to pick out, but I just wanted to show you the two different positions of the low. So the Met Office model was here, much further to the north and west, and this was the ECMWF, the European main model run. So a bit of disparity there at 12 o'clock. The midnight runs were even further apart. But looking at today's, then they are much closer together, closer to the UK. They're much closer together and closer in. So there's much more confidence in that forecast because they are coming together, which is why we're now more confident about where the strongest winds are going to be, which is why we've named the storm and issued more broad warnings for the winds that are coming in. Let's take a look at what winds we can kind of expect. So this is the graph, the map showing the wind gusts over the course of Tuesday and Wednesday. The winds are pretty light. There's a front coming in on Thursday. It'll bring some rain and the gusts will pick up. But this is Friday. This is when the storm really hits. This is why we are concerned about the strength of the winds coming in. And I'm going to show you the wind accumulations now, the strongest winds that we're likely to see as this system comes in. And you can see why we're concerned, because you can see the low in there where the winds are. Just to the south of the low as it approaches on Friday morning, really strong gusts coming in across the Republic of Ireland, and then in this swathe across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and Northern England, North Wales. That's the zone we are most concerned about. Gusts of 70 to 80 miles an hour likely, and this little pocket showing around coast, we could see gusts maybe as high as 90 miles an hour in exposed areas. So that is the zone that we're most concerned about, with those winds really picking up as the low comes in. Now, of course, it does depend on the position of the low. We've talked about how that can shift around. So, yeah, it is one to keep an eye on. Definitely, the warnings will be constantly monitored. He says, scrambling around to find those warnings, which are here. So these are the warnings that have been updated today on Tuesday. Yellow wind warnings covering much of the UK. And this zone here, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, Northern and West Wales. That's the area where we have the potential for the highest impacts. Now, they're all yellow warnings, but it's one thing you may or may not be aware of. The yellow warnings have different flavours. We have different types of warnings based on the warning matrix. And the warning matrix works out what the impacts are going to be, or it's based on how strong the impacts are going to be compared to how likely they are. And in that central zone, that yellow warning, we've got impacts that are potentially very high. So high impact, and if we get more confident over the next few computer model runs as the storm develops and intensifies, gets closer, then there's always the potential to escalate those warnings. So that's something we're keeping a very close eye on, because, say, those winds potentially are damaging. 70, 80 mile an hour gusts are going to cause problems across those highly populated areas of Northern England, Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, North and West Wales. Easily bringing down branches, causing structural damage, power issues. There's going to be widespread problems to transport as well. So it's an area we're keeping a close eye on. The other yellow warnings we are expecting, there's a slightly higher chance, but of lower impacts covering further south and further north. But the warnings actually also continue for Saturday across Scotland. So as the storm system moves away on its back edge, there's still going to be some strong winds across parts of Scotland. So the warning continues into Saturday across Scotland. And a reminder of those other warnings there for Friday that have been updated this morning. You can go and check out those warnings for yourself and see the differences on our app and on our website. But yeah, broadly speaking, the central zone, 60, 70, 80 mile an hour gusts with the possibility of even 90 mile an hour gusts around some exposed areas. Obviously, as we saw earlier, Republic of Ireland also likely to be hit by those strong and gusty winds. Let's look at some of what the ensemble messages are coming around these winds, because those pink gust graphics are just from our one deterministic, the main run of the Met Office model. But if we look at the ensembles, this is now showing the probability of a certain threshold of wind being met. We've got 70 mile an hour gusts here And it's not showing where we're going to get 70 miles, it's showing what the probability is in those areas of getting 70-mile-an-hour gusts. And you can see a high probability on those coasts of southwest of the Republic of Ireland, 90% of gusts of 70 miles an hour. A decent chance we're going to get some higher gusts in that part of the world. So this is on Friday morning. The winds then strengthen further north and further west, and then the probabilities of those 70-mile-an-hour gusts really increase across Northern Ireland, the Isle of Man in particular, and then into northwest England, North Wales as we go into the afternoon. So that's the probability based on the ensemble. When you run it many times, you can work out the chance, the likelihood of those kind of gusts being met. And 70-mile-an-hour gusts are pretty serious, and as we saw earlier, those gusts could be even higher, 80 miles an hour in some instances. So yes, the winds are the main cause of concern for Storm Éowyn as it approaches and comes in on Friday and into Saturday. But they're not the only thing that we need to concern ourselves with, because it is also going to be pretty wet as the rain bands move in. Let's actually take a quick look at the overview of the weather for the next few days. Kind of brushed over the next couple of days. There's a weak weather front sitting over. I say weak, it's been pretty damp and miserable in Greater Manchester for a day or so, hasn't it? So it's not been very pleasant there. But that band of rain sinks south as we go into Wednesday. That front clears away, and then we can start to see the jet getting a little lively. One active weather front comes across the country. That'll have some snow mixed in across the hills of northern England and Scotland on Thursday. The winds will pick up as that front swings through as well. So Thursday we'll see some rain, first proper rain for a while for many parts of the country, before we get into Friday. And there are those winds again, those really strong winds across that swathe, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England. But it does also turn milder. Notice how those temperatures really jump up by the time we get to Friday. After a cold couple of days, temperatures by Friday up to double figures. Now obviously it won't feel all that warm because the winds will be picking up, but that is quite a big jump compared to what we've been used to for the past week or so. So temperatures will jump up. We do have to watch the rainfall because that rain as it comes in, this is showing the accumulations over the next few days. But if we put it on a one map, you can see there'll be some patchy rain across the country into Wednesday, and then it picks up a little on Thursday, and by the time we get to Friday, notice it's picking out the hills there. So Cumbria, hills, mountains of Wales, the moors of southwest England, western parts of Scotland there. That's where we could see 50 millimetres of rain over 3 or 4 days. Now it's not a huge cause for concern at this stage, but we are going to see that rain band moving through on Thursday and then followed by this rain. The good news is that the storm system's moving through so quickly because the jet's still active and pushing it through that the rain won't last all that long in any one location. So it should tend to zip through. So at the moment it's an area we're keeping a close eye on, but not especially concerned with these amounts. But it has been quite wet winter in some locations, particularly in some of these western areas. So it is something that we need to keep a close eye on. So that's the rainfall. But that's not the only thing we need to worry about, the snow, because the snow level is actually dropping. It is going to get quite chilly. In fact, if we put that back on, these are the freezing levels, which by the time we get to Thursday, so the freezing level is how high up in the sky you've got to go before the temperature gets to zero. And you can see that the freezing level has really dropped by Thursday morning, just 400 metres there across Scotland. And as that rain band comes in, as I mentioned, it will have some snow mixed in on it on Thursday. And this is the snow accumulations, 3-hour snow accumulations during Thursday as it comes in. Just a few pockets in there, but notice that as that front moves through, as we go into Friday, well, that's quite a bit of snow likely there up over the hills and mountains of Scotland on Friday morning. So that's another thing we need to keep an eye on, because as everything chills down on Thursday night, then that system comes in on Friday. It's going to bring some wet weather across Scotland, and that could provide some snowfall for a time over the high ground. But nonetheless, there are some significant roads on some of that higher ground on Thursday and into Friday. So yeah, that's another area we need to watch. This might show it a little bit better. Yeah, so this is the snow depth potentially building up by Friday across the higher parts of Scotland, signal there for maybe 20 centimetres over the tops of the hills. Again, nothing unusual about that in January, but as that snow falls, as we come in, as the storm approaches and moves in, we could see those kind of amounts falling on Friday morning, potentially during rush hour as well. It really does depend on the timing of that storm. So yeah, plenty to talk about, plenty going on in the outlook as well. That low pressure system, storm Éowyn moves through, but if we fast forward to, I can take those jet stream winds off. This is Saturday, so by the time we get to Saturday, the storm is moving away up to the northwest, but the jet is still pretty active, and it's got one of those little dips in it, a trough, which is also a breeding ground for low pressure systems. And you can see the streak, the jet streak there is weakening, so you've got a left exit in here, so the potential for another area of low pressure to develop. And yeah, that is something we need to watch, this next area of low pressure coming in, because that is getting pushed along by a jet stream as we go through. There's the UK there, another area of low pressure. Now this one looks like it's going to intensify further west, so it won't be as intense perhaps, but it is something we need to watch. Again, potentially bringing some strong winds, and Storm Éowyn may weaken structures, may weaken branches, so even if it's not as intense, it could still cause some problems, and it's likely to bring further rainfall as well. So in the outlook, we need to keep our eyes on the fact that the jet stream is still lively and likely to spin up further areas of low pressure. And we could see another active area of low pressure go through Sunday and into Monday as that comes close to the UK. And again, lots of isobars on the chart too. So yeah, plenty to keep our eyes on in the short to medium term. What about beyond that? Well, going to use I couldn't do my first deep dive since Aidan's new funky new graphics and not use them, so I thought I'd introduce them again here. If you haven't seen the explanation of these new graphics that Aidan did it a few weeks ago in the deep dive with Rob Neal, who developed these, looking at the different scenarios and the different pressure patterns in the outlook. This one is basically showing us these dark blue columns here for Friday and Saturday, low pressure westerly winds coming in, because we're going to see those storm systems coming in, and you can see the dominant feature for the early part of next week is more of those low pressure systems as well. And even the mid blue there is another area of low pressure. It's kind of that pattern with low, it's just a little further north and more of a southwesterly. So in all of these patterns, notice how the temperature anomaly is the temperature above average. Winds generally coming in from the west or the southwest through all of these weather patterns. And so the temperatures, particularly across the south and the east, likely to remain above average. So yeah, it's cold this week. Temperatures pick up for Friday, and then likely to stay on the mild side, although with gusty winds and further low pressures coming in off the Atlantic well into next week. It's not really until you get to the end of next week that there are some signs of higher pressure building across the south, but that's only 1 week signal. That isn't, that's not the dominant signal there. Still these lows, or the blues rather, indicating more unsettled westerly types continuing with the milder air continuing as well. So it is likely to stay pretty mixed, pretty changeable, even beyond this weekend, with further spells of wet and windy weather. But the man himself, Aidan McGivern, will talk you through all that in the 10-day trend tomorrow, I am sure. That is pretty much it from me, I think, for this week's deep dive. A couple of things to point out. Climate Conversations, that will be posted tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, so keep your eyes peeled for that on YouTube. I talked a little bit about the warnings here. Alex Burkill has done a really good evergreen explainer all about our warning system and what that matrix means, so you can find out much more in that. That will be hopefully dropping this weekend, I think. So another reason to subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you won't miss that. So yeah, do subscribe. If you could hit the thumbs up, be doing us a massive, massive favour. Thank you. We know you like this kind of stuff, but again, in the comments, if you've got any suggestions, any changes, any tweaks that you'd like, let us know what you think about the graphics system as well. We love hearing from you. You're the reason we kind of do all this stuff. So yes, please do keep your comments coming in. And as I said at the start, share the love, let other people know that we're on here. Do keep up to date with the forecast. This storm system hasn't developed yet. It's likely to be shifting around. The warnings will certainly be fine-tuned as well. So do keep up to date with the forecast and those weather warnings to see how you could be infected or you could be impacted as this storm arrives on Friday. But for now, thanks for watching.